David Brewster here with a new episode of Soloing Secrets, and this is Johnny Winter, and I've had some requests to feature more of Johnny's music. There is a 3-for-all episode surrounding Johnny Winter here on my channel, but now we're going to do a deep dive into his soloing style and kind of look at some of his licks and phrases and some of his historic, guitar ideas. And Johnny's career started around 1959, and during his career he released 19 studio albums, 9 live albums, 15 compilations, not to mention 5 albums cut with Muddy Waters. Definitely, Johnny Winter is a legendary rock and blues rock guitarist. So much like we've done in other episodes in the Soloing Secrets series, when you're focusing on a certain musician or guitarist or band, it's always a good idea to scope out their influences, which are going to reveal some secrets and habits and techniques that pop up in their music. And with Johnny, it's a healthy dose of blues legends. So here's some of Johnny Winter's elusive musical influences. So it's interesting to note in the late 60s, Johnny Winter and Jimi Hendrix became friends, and they jammed, on stage a few times. They did actually record Things I Used to Do, the old Memphis Slim song. That didn't appear until much later, like in 2018, like a Hendrix compilation. But definitely it's interesting to note that Johnny Winter and Jimi were friends, and that could have turned into an actual album, had Jimi lived a little bit longer. But it's really interesting to notice that history right there. Speaking of interesting history surrounding Johnny Winter, of course, Johnny was the brother of Edgar Winter, a legendary rock musician for sure. And it's really interesting to notice a young Rick Derringer who worked with, Edgar Winter and Edgar Winter Group, but he also worked with Johnny Winter on a number of albums. I think Rick worked with the Winter brothers, back and forth between 1970 and 1976, extremely prolific. He also started a solo career right in the middle of working with the Winter brothers. So as far as Johnny Winter's actual soloing secrets, the things he liked to do when he'd pick up a guitar and play a solo or a fill or a lick or something, and there's a lot, a lot of blues-based influences, a lot of, minor pentatonic scales and minor blues scales, lots of bending and vibrato, and definitely, you can hear Johnny, he's very intense, and aggressive when he played, but you can hear it on albums, but I definitely recommend, scope out and find video footage and watch him play, because that really kind of drives home that intensity and that fury, when he would play. And he would go into a solo and then just start just going crazy, with the bending and vibrato moves and these quirky rhythms and repetitive licks and these little motifs that popped up. Definitely a legendary and essential, blues rock guitarist. So the music and ideas in this episode came from 2 Johnny Winter related albums, and I was tempted to do a deep dive and feature a whole bunch of music, from throughout his career, but I definitely got locked on to 2 of my favorite Johnny Winter albums, and it was really hard to move away from them. That's Second Winter and Johnny Winter And, which was the first album with Rick Derringer, and we're really just going to look at, music from 2 different albums and 3 different songs. But it's going to supply you with this template of licks and phrases and these different things that Johnny liked to do. And once you tackle this stuff, you're going to see a lot of this stuff reappear in other music from different decades, from the legendary Johnny Winter. So anyway, here we go. For the opening jam, that's Guess I'll Go Away from Johnny Winter and it's basically this rock out blues rock riff based around minor pentatonic and the minor blues scale in the key of G. So G minor pentatonic or G minor blues scale like this. So it starts with the G pentatonic and then answer that with this G minor blues riff. So you're just climbing up G minor pentatonic in the beginning and then G minor blues right here, and then so that's the first half, and the second half slightly different. You see we're kind of just walking up and down that G minor blues the second time. So that's the riff that's repeated a couple times. Eventually you start doing chord hits like that C power chord. Go to D. Go up to F, do it again. Back to that G minor pentatonic riff. And right here there's a really tasty lick. So you're doing a pre-bend and release on that C. And you're going to catch that B flat and smear bend that. And then catch that G note right there. Like that. Really tasty and expressive right there. And then this little deceptive, like that, slide into that D note and then catch G. Like that. Go back to those chord hits. After D, you're going to go to B flat right there. Then you've got this. So it's B flat, and you're playing with the sus4, that E flat, and you're grabbing that C note. And do the same thing in C right there. And there you're catching that F and catching that D note. And then you start banging on this, D riff. So it's like. That's what the MXR clone looper was looping, during the intro. And I started playing a bunch of Johnny Winter licks. This major pentatonic lick here. And then start playing with this G and F sharp. And then right there I put kind of a stock Johnny Winter bending lick and this quirky kind of spastic rhythm. And then you start doing this stuff. And definitely Johnny did a lot of that kind of stuff where he would bend like a unison bend, but he would separate the notes and start picking frantically. That kind of stuff, and coming down. And that little lick right there I usually associate with Hendrix, but there's Johnny Winter doing it. That kind of repetitive motif. But definitely he keeps going. There's a ton of great stuff in that song. And that just kind of reveals some of Johnny Winter's, elusive little secrets and licks, and definitely those crammed pentatonic bending licks and stuff. Really cool stuff. Next up are some ideas from the song Let the Music Play. This is also from the album Johnny Winter and this song is interesting. It's kind of a mix between While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and then eventually it turns into 25 or 6/4 almost. And the chord progression is very similar. It's A minor to A minor over G to this, kind of like a D7 over F sharp to F to G, and you repeat it again. There's like an intro guitar solo that happens, with that riff. So I'm going to use the MXR clone looper again and break the solo down. So the intro solo is like this. Something like that, really expressive, just digging right in. And he starts with this. what an opening for a solo right there. He's just really digging in. It's kind of nasty, a little fuzzy. And it's all about the way it's played. I mean, it's just basically based around A minor pentatonic, but there's all this aggression and expression in there. Really cool lick. Then he starts sliding these. So he's sliding that D into E, grabbing that A note, and then grabs that E again, and then ends on C. And then slide that D to E again, and then end on that A. And then a big, healthy, whole step bend on this D up to E, and you're gonna pick it. Think Smoke on the Water, Richie Blackmore. But here's Johnny Winter. And technically that's before Smoke on the Water, so I don't know if Richie picked this up from Johnny Winter or what, but there's a, kind of like this aggressively picked, gradual release bend. Like that. Here's another one of Johnny's kind of spastic bending licks, and this also came from Let the Music Play, like this. One more time. Once again, we're in A minor pentatonic right there, and it's using very common, things, but the way he put it together is very unusual, like this. So you're doing this, 8th to 5th pull off on the B and the high E, and then the B again. And it's the way. And then he ends with a bend right there. You're going to end on that C note. And then grab that D and bend it real throaty, into E. Such an expressive phrase. Kind of a standard Johnny Winter, bending lick right there. Definitely try it in other keys. You'll definitely find Johnny playing that in other positions. Put it up there in E right there. But then learn it again right there. So in this last area of this lesson, we're going to include some licks from Memory Pain, and this came from Johnny's album Second Winter, and now we're in C minor. We started in G, and then A minor, and now we're in C minor. C minor pentatonic. This first idea, it's basically a standard Johnny Winter kind of spastic bending phrase, like this. One more time. So right there we're in C minor pentatonic, and we're going to start with this. So you're going to basically kind of start it like a normal way. Like that. Think Ace Frehley, Jimmy Page, and some players like that. And then this. That's really interesting because you're bending that B flat up to C, playing C, and then you're going to do a release bend, from that bent C back to B flat. And then he starts doing this frantic, legato. And then he starts picking the crap out of this F note while he's bending. Like that. Kind of reminds me of Jimmy Page a little bit right there, but... This next idea also takes place during Memory Pain, and it's this really interesting kind of separated unison bend that's moved like a whole step apart, like this. Kind of unusual right there. One more time. So you're basically bending, this E flat up to F and then playing F on the B string. And then do the exact same thing up a whole step. Bend this F to G and then fret G on the B string. And you're going to do that basically twice in a row. Go back to that E flat bend. And then just basically do a B flat to C trill there on the G string. Like that. Really unusual, quirky phrasing. And this kind of leads us into some of Johnny's spastic bending, once again. And in the song, you can definitely hear him do this. And that's really interesting because you're basically doing the same thing we just did with that kind of shifting unison bend that was separated, but now we're doing... So you're basically bending that F up to G and then catching that G there on the B string. And you're going to basically do the bend, pick it twice, bend, pick it twice, bend, pick it once. And then that creates the motif. Right. Do it again on the B and the high E. Do it right here. And that's the same idea. And it's basically that single pick note that kind of creates that rhythmic hiccup. Really interesting phrase right there. Okay, this last idea also came from the song Memory Pain, and here we find Johnny channeling some B.B. King, like this. One more time. So right there, he basically starts on this F, and he starts kind of bending it, and he's picking. And then he's going to release that, kind of smear this E flat, grab that C. And then after you grab that C, you're going to smear that E flat on the high E again. And then right here, this is straight out of the B.B. King box. Like there's your B.B. King box scale right there. And we've talked about that in other episodes on the channel, but there's Johnny using it. And he's doing this, so he's sliding into that A, and then it goes up to G. Right? Something like that. Such a cool phrase. Right, that's going to wrap this episode of Soloing Secrets with this look at Johnny Winter. Definitely a very influential and important, blues rock guitarist, and well beyond Hendrix, who we mentioned earlier. Everybody on the scene was checking out Johnny Winter back in the 60s and 70s, and there's just something about his playing. It's all this energy and emotion, and this feel and this drive. When you pick up a guitar and start playing, it's like you're riding shotgun with him or something. It's like, okay, where are we going, Johnny? Because definitely a very exciting guitarist. And he's one of those players that's commonly overlooked. I mean, you've got Hendrix and Clapton and Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck and Ritchie Blackmore and that group. And in that 60s, 70s blues rock crew, there's some other players that are equally important. Peter Green, Leslie West, and of course the eternal, Johnny Winter. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.